June 6, 1944. 1:01 in the morning. The sky over Normandy is black, filled with tracers and anti-aircraft fire. Inside a Seifk transport plane bouncing through flak, a 36-year-old American general stands in the door. His name is James Gavin. Below him, somewhere in that darkness, thousands of German soldiers wait in fortified positions. Behind him, 18-year-old paratroopers watch their general in silence. Their faces are blackened with camouflage paint. Some are praying. Some are trying not to vomit from the turbulence. All of them are terrified. Standard doctrine says generals command from headquarters miles behind the lines, looking at maps and pushing pins. But James Gavin isn't following standard doctrine tonight. He checks his parachute one last time, looks back at his men, and says 5 words that will echo through military history. "I'll see you on the ground." Then he jumps into the darkness, into enemy fire, into immortality. He wasn't alone. Between 1941 and 1945, 5 American generals changed warfare forever. They didn't just win battles. They created new ways of killing the enemy while saving their own men's lives. Today, we're ranking them by verified combat results, by enemy casualties, by the cold mathematics of who won while losing the fewest soldiers. And I promise you, number 1 isn't who you think it is. But first, hit that like button right now and subscribe, because what you're about to learn didn't make it into any Hollywood movie. Over 100 American generals served in World War II. Most of them were competent, courageous men who did their duty, but only 5 produced results so devastating that enemy high commands issued special operational guidelines for dealing with them. The German Wehrmacht compiled intelligence dossiers on American commanders, ranking them by threat level. These 5 men topped every list. Japanese headquarters in Tokyo created specific tactical doctrines for one particular American general, because nothing else worked against him. This isn't about equipment advantages or having more men. American forces were often outnumbered, especially early in the war. This is about the leadership that maximized every advantage and refused to accept defeat. These 5 generals killed more enemy soldiers, captured more territory, and lost fewer of their own men than anyone else. Let's count them down, and let me warn you, this ranking will surprise you. August 1944, Southern France, the War Room at Allied High Command in London. Staff officers huddle over maps, calculating how long it will take to capture southern France and link up with forces advancing from Normandy. The mountains favor defenders. The Germans have 285,000 troops dug into natural defensive positions. Standard movement rates, expected resistance, terrain analysis, all the numbers get crunched. Final estimate, 90 days minimum, possibly longer. The German 19th Army feels confident they can hold for 3 months, maybe 4. Then Lucian Truscott arrives and everything changes. Truscott does something revolutionary. He throws away the Army's movement doctrine entirely. The manual says infantry advances at 2.5 miles per hour carrying full combat gear. Truscott demands 5 miles per hour. His officers think he's insane. During training, his soldiers curse his name with every blister. They call it the Truscott Trot, and they absolutely hate it. Then they hit combat, and suddenly they understand. August 15th, Operation Dragoon. Truscott's 6th Corps storms the beaches of southern France. German intelligence tracks their landing, plots their position, and calculates when they'll reach the first major defensive line. The math is straightforward. Based on standard American movement rates, Truscott's forces will arrive in approximately 72 hours. German engineers have 72 hours to finish defensive positions, register artillery, and position reserves. But 48 hours later, American infantry appears on the horizon. Not 72 hours, 8 hours. The defensive line isn't ready. Artillery crews haven't registered their targets. Reserves are still moving into position. By the time German commanders realize what's happening, Truscott is already 20 miles past them, cutting supply routes and surrounding positions that were supposed to be impregnable. A German lieutenant named Hans Krebs wrote in his diary, later captured by American forces, "They move like ghosts. We plot their position in the morning, and by afternoon they are 40 kilometers away, attacking positions we thought safe. How do they move so fast? Where do they get the energy? Our men are exhausted, trying to keep pace with an enemy that never stops." Within 28 days, Truscott completes an operation High Command said would take 90 days. The German 19th Army loses 108,000 men, killed, wounded, and captured. But here's what matters. Truscott's 6th Corps suffers the lowest casualty rate per mile advanced of any American corps in the entire European theater. He kills more enemies while losing fewer of his own men than comparable commanders. That's not luck. That's understanding something fundamental. In modern warfare, speed kills more effectively than firepower. After the war, a German colonel named Friedrich Wiese, who commanded a division against Truscott, told American interrogators, "When we learned Truscott was in our sector, we had two options: retreat immediately and save our forces, or stand and watch our entire division get surrounded. There was no third option. You could not fight him conventionally. He was already behind you before you realized he was in front of you." Most Americans have never heard the name Lucian Truscott. The Germans who fought him never forgot it. Now, let's go back to that siege over Normandy. James Gavin jumps into darkness at 1:51 a.m. on June 6th. He's a brigadier general commanding assault elements of the 82nd Airborne Division. He doesn't jump for photographs or publicity. He jumps because he enlisted as a private in earned his way into West Point through competitive examination, and climbed every rank through merit. He knows something every great leader knows. Soldiers won't follow a general who asks them to do what he won't do himself. Gavin lands 4 miles from his designated drop zone. His equipment container is lost. He has a pistol, a knife, a compass, and 12 scattered paratroopers who landed nearby. Most officers would spend the night trying to locate their units, reorganize, and wait for dawn. Gavin doesn't wait. By sunrise, he's captured Sainte-Mère-Église, the first French town liberated on D-Day. Private Robert Murphy, 82nd Airborne, wrote to his mother 3 weeks later. The letter survived. "Ma, I can't tell you where I am, but I can tell you this. Our general jumped with us. First man out of the plane. We landed scattered all over France, lost in the dark, Germans everywhere. But we knew if General Gavin could land in that mess and start fighting, we could too. That's why we didn't break. That's why we held when we should have been overrun." The 82nd Airborne was supposed to be relieved 48 hours after D-Day. They held for 33 days against 5 German divisions. The division lost 5 twists, nearly half their strength, but they held every single objective assigned to them. Every bridge, every crossroads, every town. German panzer divisions trying to counterattack the invasion beaches had to fight through Gavin's paratroopers first. Most never made it to the coast. A German battalion commander named Kurt Meyer wrote in his after-action report, "The American airborne troops do not behave like normal infantry. They do not retreat when surrounded. They do not surrender when outnumbered. They fight until killed or until we withdraw. This is not normal soldier behavior. This is fanaticism, but not the political fanaticism of SS troops. This is belief in their commander." In 4 major operations, Sicily, Normandy, Holland, and the Battle of the Bulge, Gavin's 82nd Airborne engaged 23 different German divisions. They inflicted approximately 23,000 casualties while suffering 15 casualties themselves. That's a 1.5 to 1 kill ratio, which doesn't sound impressive until you understand what it means. Airborne forces are lightly armed infantry with no tanks, limited artillery, and only what they can carry. Doctrine said they couldn't hold against armored counterattacks. Gavin's division did it 4 times. September 1944, Operation Market Garden. The 82nd Airborne drops into Holland to capture bridges across the Waal River at Nijmegen. The mission is supposed to take 48 hours. It takes 9 days of continuous combat against SS Panzer divisions. On the 4th day, Gavin orders an assault river crossing under direct enemy fire. Infantry doctrine calls it near suicidal, crossing a major river in daylight while enemy machine guns fire from fortified positions on the opposite bank. His paratroopers do it anyway because Gavin stands on the riverbank watching them go, completely exposed to enemy fire. They capture the bridge. When British armor finally arrives to relieve them, the British commander takes one look at the exhausted Americans and asks how they held so long against such overwhelming force. Gavin's answer became legendary. "We had no place else to go." December 1944, the Battle of the Bulge. Hitler launches Germany's last major offensive, 30 divisions smashing through the Ardennes to split Allied forces. The 82nd Airborne is resting in France after 2 months of continuous combat. They're exhausted, under strength, barely combat effective. Then comes the call. German breakthrough, all reserves needed immediately. Within 24 hours, Gavin has his paratroopers loaded on trucks. Within 48 hours, they're in defensive positions, holding the northern shoulder of the German advance. For 3 weeks, they fight off repeated attacks by the 1st SS Panzer Division, arguably the most elite German unit on the Western Front. After the war, captured German officers were asked which American units they feared most. The 82nd Airborne under Gavin was mentioned more than any other, not because of equipment or numbers, but because of leadership that created soldiers who simply would not break. Now we come to the man most Americans don't know, but who commanded more combat power than any general in American history. His name is Omar Bradley, and by May 1945, he commands 1.3 million men in 4 field armies, 43 divisions, more firepower than most nations possess in their entire military. Forces under Bradley's command killed or captured approximately 1 million enemy soldiers between June 1944 and May 1945. I read that number again, 1 million. That's more enemy casualties than any other American commander in Europe. more than Eisenhower directly commanded, more than Patton, more than anyone. And most Americans couldn't pick his face out of a lineup. Bradley doesn't seek publicity. He doesn't make dramatic speeches. He doesn't wear custom uniforms or carry ivory-handled pistols. He plans operations with mathematical precision and executes them with machine-like efficiency. The Germans call his operational style Uhrwerk, clockwork, because Bradley's attacks come exactly when predicted, hit exactly where expected, and achieve exactly what was promised. July 12th, 1944. The Normandy invasion has stalled. Allied forces are trapped in hedgerow country, gaining yards at terrible cost. German defensive lines are holding. Political pressure from Churchill and Roosevelt is mounting. Eisenhower needs results. Bradley sees the solution. He concentrates several hundred heavy bombers on a 5-mile front near St. Lo. For 3 hours, they drop 4,000 tons of explosives on German positions. Then Bradley sends 7 divisions through the gap. The German line doesn't retreat, it disintegrates. Within 2 hours, American armor operates in open country behind German lines. Within a week, the entire German front in Normandy collapses. Within a month, Paris is liberated. A sergeant named William Preston, 1st Infantry Division, survived the Bocage fighting and Operation Cobra. He gave an interview in 1984. "We'd been stuck in those hedgerows for weeks. Guys were getting killed for 50 yards of ground. Then one morning, the bombers came. I've never seen anything like it. The ground shook like an earthquake. When it stopped, we moved forward, and there was nothing. Just craters and dead Germans. General Bradley broke the whole thing open in one day. We went from fighting for hedgerows to racing across France. He saved a lot of American lives by thinking different." German Field Marshal Gunther von Kluge, commanding Army Group B, realizes the situation is catastrophic. Rather than report the disaster to Hitler and face execution for failure, he takes a cyanide capsule. His replacement, Walter Model, describes Bradley's operational tempo as impossible to counter, because by the time German commanders understand what Bradley is doing and issue countermeasures, Bradley is already executing the next phase, 3 steps ahead. August 9th, as German forces retreat from Normandy, Bradley coordinates with British and Canadian forces to create a massive encirclement. The Falaise Pocket requires perfect timing across 3 national armies with different languages, different doctrines, different operational styles. Most historians consider this level of coordination impossible in combat conditions. Bradley does it anyway. The pocket closes. Approximately 50,000 German soldiers die. 200,000 surrender in one operation. It's the largest encirclement battle in Western Front history. Then December comes, and with it, Hitler's last gamble. The Ardennes Offensive. 30 German divisions, 400 tanks, Germany's final reserves, all committed to one desperate attack to split Allied forces and capture Antwerp. Most Allied commanders are caught by surprise. Bradley isn't. Within 18 hours of the German breakthrough, he identifies it as a major offensive, not a local attack. He repositions forces immediately. He gives Patton permission to counterattack from the south. He reinforces the northern shoulder. He establishes coherent defensive lines while German spearheads are still advancing. By December 26th, the German advance stalls. By January 25th, 1940, the Bulge is eliminated. Captain James Hamilton, staff officer at 12th Army Group Headquarters, kept a diary. Entry from December 9th. The Germans have broken through. Chaos everywhere, units scattered, communications failing, but General Bradley is calm. He's already moving divisions, already issuing orders, already 3 steps ahead of the enemy. It's like watching a chess master who sees 20 moves ahead. The rest of us are panicking. He's planning their destruction. German casualties in the Bulge, 100,000. American casualties, 89,000. But Bradley understands something crucial. American losses can be replaced within a month. New divisions, fresh equipment, continuous supply from an untouchable industrial base. German losses cannot be replaced at all. After the Bulge, Bradley pushes into Germany. His 12th Army Group encircles the Ruhr industrial region in April 1940, trapping 325,000 German soldiers in one massive pocket. It's the largest mass surrender in German military history. Field Marshal Walter Model, commanding the trapped forces, realizes resistance is pointless and dissolves his army group rather than order a meaningless last stand. Then he walks into a forest and shoots himself. The surrender happens because Bradley surrounded them so efficiently that fighting could only waste lives with zero possibility of changing the outcome. That's the difference between good generals and great generals. Good generals win through superior force. Great generals make the enemy realize fighting is futile. Bradley died in 1981 at age 88. No Hollywood movie, no dramatic legacy. Just the quiet record of the man who commanded more troops and killed more German soldiers than any American general through simple, relentless competence. Now we come to the legend. George Patton. Yes, number 2, not number 1, and the reason will become clear. Patton's Third Army inflicted approximately 1.4 million casualties on German forces, killed, wounded, and captured, with a kill ratio approaching 9-1. Those are spectacular numbers. Hollywood made movies. His speeches are legendary. Everything about Patton was designed for maximum impact, but those results came at a cost. Third Army suffered 160,000 casualties, the highest of any American army in Europe. Did Americans died under Patton's command, more than any other field army commander. The question isn't whether Patton was effective. He absolutely was. The question is whether his aggressive tactics required casualty rates other commanders might have avoided. The legend says Patton was a military genius who terrified Germans, that Third Army swept across Europe unstoppably, that politicians held him back from ending the war months earlier. There's truth in that legend. Patton's army captured 80,000 square miles in 9 months, more territory than any other American force. His relief of Bastogne during the Battle of the Bulge was operationally brilliant. Turning Third Army 90 degrees in 48 hours, moving 3 divisions 100 miles through winter weather to attack the German flank required logistical genius and ruthless execution. But Patton's casualty rates were 40% higher per day of combat than the 12th Army group average. His attack through Lorraine in autumn 1944 is the clearest example. Patton wanted to maintain momentum after breaking out from Normandy. He believed speed and aggression could carry Third Army through the Siegfried Line into Germany before the Germans reorganized. He attacked fortified positions with insufficient artillery preparation and inadequate logistics. The campaign cost 50,000 American casualties to advance 40 miles. The exchange ratio dropped to 3 Germans killed for every American lost, far below Patton's usual 9-to-1. Lieutenant Robert Allen, 4th Armored Division, wrote home in October 1944. His family donated the letter to the National Archives. "Mom, I can't tell you where we are, but it's hell. We're attacking fortifications the Germans have been building for years. General Patton says we have to keep moving, keep attacking, never give them time to breathe. He's right about keeping pressure on. But we're losing good men attacking bunkers we could bypass. Yesterday we lost 40 men taking a pillbox. This morning I found out there's a road around it we could have used. But that's not Patton's way. He says hesitation kills more men than action. Maybe he's right. I just wish it wasn't my friends paying the price." 21 Medals of Honor were awarded for actions under Patton's command during the Battle of the Bulge alone, more than any other single battle in the European theater. His soldiers performed incredible acts of courage because Patton demanded it. They died in larger numbers because Patton accepted those costs as the price of aggressive warfare. The Rhine crossing in March 1945 demonstrates both sides of Patton's command style. Third Army crosses at Oppenheim on March 22nd, beating British Field Marshal Montgomery's elaborate operation by 24 hours. Patton makes certain to telephone Bradley and announce the crossing before Montgomery's operation begins, turning warfare into personal competition. Within 48 hours, Third Army advances 55 miles, the fastest sustained advance in military history. It cost 12,000 American casualties in 2 days. Patton wanted to drive to Berlin. He believed Third Army could reach the German capital before the Soviet forces, and he was probably right. Eisenhower stopped him for political reasons. Roosevelt and Churchill had already agreed the Soviets would take Berlin. Patton obeyed, but never stopped arguing. By VE Day, Third Army had killed or captured 1.4 million German soldiers while suffering 137,000 casualties, including 27,000 killed. The highest enemy body count in Europe and simultaneously the highest American casualty rate. Patton won every battle, captured more ground, destroyed more enemy units than any comparable commander. But he did it accepting casualty rates other generals considered unacceptable. That's not criticism, it's fact. George Patton died in December 1940 from injuries in a car accident in occupied Germany. He's buried at Luxembourg American Cemetery, among Third Army's dead. His grave is a simple white cross identical to thousands of others, except for the steady stream of visitors. A private named Michael Romano, who served under Patton from France to Czechoslovakia, visited that grave in 1985. He told a reporter, "People ask me if Patton was worth it, if all those casualties were necessary. I tell them this. Patton believed every day we delayed ending the war, more Americans died. So he attacked and attacked and attacked until Germany broke. Some generals wanted to minimize casualties by going slow. Patton wanted to minimize casualties by ending the war fast. We'll never know which philosophy was right. But I know this. When we needed someone to punch through German lines and drive to Bastogne, everyone called Patton because they knew he'd get there no matter what it cost." Now we reach number 1. Douglas MacArthur. Before you object, before you cite his ego and self-promotion, consider the mathematics. Between 1942 and the forces under MacArthur's command in the Southwest Pacific killed approximately 485,000 Japanese soldiers in combat and captured another 71,000. But those numbers don't tell the complete story. MacArthur's island-hopping strategy bypassed heavily defended Japanese positions. Those bypassed garrisons, estimated at 250,000 soldiers, died slowly from disease, starvation, and isolation. They couldn't threaten MacArthur's operations, couldn't evacuate, couldn't affect the war's outcome. They just died. Total Japanese casualties from MacArthur's campaigns exceed 1 million. That's why he ranks first, his casualty exchange ratio. In the Papua New Guinea campaign, MacArthur's forces suffered 24,000 casualties. Japanese forces lost 60,000, a 6:6 ratio. In the Philippines, American casualties were 62,000, including 14,000 killed. Japanese casualties were 36,000, including 2 killed, a 5:1 ratio. Compare that to island assault operations like Iwo Jima, where American forces suffered 26,000 casualties to kill 18,000 Japanese defenders, actually losing more men than the enemy lost. MacArthur's strategy produced dramatically better results at dramatically lower costs because he didn't fight where the enemy was strong. He attacked where they were weak, cut their supply lines, and let isolation do the killing. The island-hopping strategy revolutionized Pacific warfare. Previous operations tried to capture every Japanese-held island, fighting brutal battles for strategically marginal positions. MacArthur realized that was unnecessary. Take the airfields, take the ports, bypass everything else. Japanese garrisons on bypassed islands couldn't affect American operations. No ships, no aircraft, no resupply, no way to threaten MacArthur's advance. They were militarily irrelevant, so MacArthur left them to starve. By war's end, over 250,000 Japanese soldiers were isolated on islands across the Pacific. Most died from starvation and disease. It's brutal, ruthless, and undeniably effective. Corporal David Chen, 1st Cavalry Division, wrote in his diary during the Philippines campaign, February 1940. We landed expecting another bloodbath like Tarawa or Saipan, but MacArthur had us bypass the main Japanese forces. We took the airfield, took the port, and kept moving. Behind us, 30,000 Japanese soldiers sat in their fortifications waiting for an attack that never came. No water, no food, no purpose. 3 months later, I heard they were eating grass and dying of disease. It sounds cruel, and maybe it is. But I'm alive to write this because MacArthur didn't send me to assault a fortified position he could just ignore. October 1944, the Battle of Leyte Gulf, demonstrates MacArthur's operational sophistication. The Philippines' liberation requires coordinating Army ground forces, Navy amphibious operations, and Air Force support across thousands of miles of ocean. The Japanese commit their entire remaining naval strength to stop the invasion, resulting in the largest naval battle in history. MacArthur's forces win decisively. Japanese losses: 4 aircraft carriers, 3 battleships, 10 cruisers, approximately 12,000 sailors killed. American losses: 3 ships, 3,000 sailors. The Imperial Japanese Navy ceases to exist as an effective fighting force. The criticism of MacArthur is absolutely valid. He was self-aggrandizing, glory-seeking, and cultivated a personality cult. He awarded himself more medals than any general in American history. He carefully staged photographs. His famous "I Shall Return" landing in the Philippines required multiple takes, wading through shallow water repeatedly until photographers captured the perfect shot. Everything about MacArthur's public persona was theatrical performance. But beneath that theater was genuine strategic brilliance. His coordination of air, naval, and ground forces across thousands of miles was the most sophisticated combined arms operation of the war. His logistics system supported 2 million troops operating simultaneously from Australia to the Philippines to New Guinea. And his casualty rates proved that aggressive strategy didn't require massive American losses. You could win decisively while protecting soldiers' lives if you fought smart instead of fighting everywhere. By August 1940, MacArthur commands over 2 million American, Australian, and Filipino troops positioned for the invasion of Japan. The invasion never comes. Atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki convince Japanese leadership to surrender. MacArthur accepts Japan's surrender September 2, 1948, aboard USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay. Then he becomes Supreme Commander overseeing and reconstruction. This is where MacArthur's legacy transcends military achievement. He transforms Japan from militaristic empire to democratic ally. Land reform, women's suffrage, economic reconstruction, constitutional democracy. A Japanese teacher named Yuki Tanaka, who was 16 when the war ended, gave an interview in 1995. We were taught to hate Americans, to fight to the death, rather than surrender. When MacArthur arrived, we expected brutality. Instead, he treated us with respect. He understood our culture. He rebuilt our country. The modern Japan exists because MacArthur got occupation policy right. Many Japanese of my generation consider him the father of modern Japan. The modern U.S.-Japan alliance exists because MacArthur got occupation policy right. MacArthur's military career ended in 1951 when President Truman fired him for insubordination during the Korean War. He gave his famous "Old soldiers never die. They just fade away" speech to Congress and retired. He died in 1964 at age 84. Love him or hate him, and reasonable people disagree, Douglas MacArthur was the most effective American general of World War II because he killed more enemy soldiers while losing fewer of his own men than any commander in history. That's not opinion. That's mathematics. Let's add them up. Truscott, approximately 30 enemy killed. Gavin, approximately 23,000. Bradley, it's approximately 1 million. Patton, approximately 1.4 million. MacArthur, over 1 million. We American generals, over 3.5 million enemy casualties. They didn't just win battles, they revolutionized modern warfare. Truscott proved speed kills more than firepower. Gavin proved leadership from the front creates soldiers who won't break. Bradley proved methodical planning defeats chaos. Patton proved aggressive action shortens wars even at terrible cost. MacArthur proved strategic brilliance minimizes casualties more than tactical brilliance. Each of these men had flaws. Truscott was unknown. Gavin was reckless with his own life. Bradley lacked charisma. Patton cost too many American lives. MacArthur was insufferably arrogant. But here's what matters. When America needed generals who could win while bringing their soldiers home alive, these 5 men delivered. They understood that every American soldier who died represented a family destroyed, a future stolen, a loss that could never be replaced. So they fought smart, not just hard. Did we get the ranking right? Should Patton be higher because his aggressiveness shortened the war? Should Bradley be number 1 because he commanded the most troops? Should MacArthur rank lower because his theater faced a weaker enemy? These are legitimate debates, and military historians will argue them forever. But here's what's not debatable. These 5 generals represent the best of American military leadership. They came from different backgrounds, used different tactics, had different philosophies, but they shared one trait: absolute refusal to accept defeat or waste American lives unnecessarily. Private First Class Anthony Rodriguez, who served under Bradley in the 1st Infantry Division, came home in 1904 and lived until 2003. His grandson recorded an interview 6 months before he died. Rodriguez said this: "People ask me about the generals. They want to hear about Patton's speeches or MacArthur's pipe. I tell them the truth. The generals I respected weren't the ones who gave the best speeches. They were the ones who brought us home alive. My squad landed in Normandy with 12 men. We fought through France, Belgium, and Germany. 9 of us came home. That's because of generals who valued our lives enough to plan carefully, attack smart, and win efficiently. That's what made America different. Our generals cared if we lived or died. That's the real story of World War II, not just victory, but how that victory was achieved. These 5 generals killed millions of enemy soldiers, not through brutality, but through superiority in planning, logistics, tactics, and leadership. They minimized American casualties, not through caution, but through brilliance. And they won not just battles, but the peace that followed, creating a world where American values of democracy and freedom could flourish. Thank you for watching this journey through history. If this changed how you see World War II, hit that like button and subscribe. Share this video with anyone who loves military history and drop a comment telling us your ranking. Should Patton be higher? Does MacArthur deserve the top spot? We want to hear from you. These generals deserve to be remembered not for what Hollywood turned them into, but for what they actually accomplished, winning the greatest war in history while bringing home as many American soldiers as possible. That's leadership. That's courage. That's why we study them 80 years later. Until next time, remember, the true measure of a general isn't just enemies killed, but friendly lives saved.